Now we're expanding the order to include exponents. We've already studied exponents somewhat extensively. We're bringing them into the full order now, where we're going to evaluate them with all the other operations, because we've got multiplication, we've also got addition. Looks like we may end up with some subtraction along the way too. So following the order, anytime I have to do order, I usually write this out just so I remember. Parentheses, exponents, multiplication, division happen at the same time we just talked about. Addition and subtraction happen at the same time, but MD comes first, addition and subtraction comes last. So following the order carefully, first we look at parentheses. There is a parenthesis here, but there's nothing to do, so move on. So the next thing is exponents. So I look at my exponential number and I'm going to evaluate that. Luckily this is a fairly easy one. 3 squared is 3 times 3, which is 9. Not to be confused with 6. Common mistake maker, especially when you get into these problems that are more involved, is people will see that and they'll write 6. Just without thinking, they'll just write 6. And that's all I'm going to do in that step. As you get better at these, you'll be able to move more quickly with steps, because you would find out we could have went ahead and multiplied that 5 times negative 3. But when you're just learning, when you're getting better at it, be careful, move slowly so that you don't make mistakes. So the 9 is done. Now we're ready to multiply. Plus, this ends up being a negative 15. So you don't necessarily need parentheses. I just think they keep things wrapped up and neat for you. Plus 6. So now we're just down to addition and subtraction. 9 plus a negative 15 is equal to negative 6. Again, going back to the rules for adding signed numbers or integers, we can never forget those things. Adding a negative and a positive, you find the difference. 15 minus 9 is 6. 15 is the more powerful and it's negative. That's how that ends up being negative. And then plus 6. Well, negative 6 plus 6, difference is 0. So we end up with 0 in that question. Let's work one more. Just an aside, the nice thing about the order is there's a lot of mistakes that are made here, and they tend to be kind of a pain. It's like a puzzle that you're doing. If you're like me and you enjoy puzzles, that makes them kind of fun, but I understand that not everybody sees them as being fun. I just kind of think they are. In the evaluation you have to do here in these classes with the orders, probably more complex than you'll ever have to do out in the real world, but you'll know how to do it well. Order comes into play more frequently in the sciences when you use formulas, and the order is extremely important. So it's important that we teach you the order and that we give you enough practice time with it that you become proficient with it. Okay, back to the order. Parentheses, there's one parenthesis, nothing to do in it, so move on to exponents. Now, the temptation here is to start here, and what you'll find out later when you're more experienced is you probably could have, but just to be careful, start with the exponent. Now this is a nice problem because it brings up a situation we talked about. There is a negative here, but it's not in a parenthesis, so the only thing the square is acting on, or the 2 is acting on, is the 3, not the negative. So as I evaluate this, I'm going to leave the negative 4 times the negative 3 alone, minus, it's the opposite of 3 squared, 9. If that had been in parentheses, then we would have squared it and we would have ended up with a positive 9 here, but that wasn't the case. So all those little nuances are mistake makers, building opportunities, so be careful with it. Now we can go to the multiplication and division. Negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Minus 9 plus 4, there's no more multiplication, so we're ready to add and subtract in the order that they appear. In this case, it says to subtract first. Even though it's last in the order, remember these are done at the same time in the order that they appear, just like we read from left to right. 12 minus 9 is 3. Don't know why I wrote down a 9. 12, because 12 minus 9 is definitely 3 plus 4. So the final answer is 7.